cost of living raise for Mr. Baker?
Yeah, let's get through the ECC just to keep us on,
Mr. Baker,
because they'll be quick.
That's fine, that's fine. We can do it
All right,
later.
if you can go ahead and call us back to order, and ECC, go ahead.
Good morning. For those that haven't met me, I'm Bruce Davis. I'm the director. This is Amy Simpson, our deputy director, and Missy Bill, our office manager. We also have Mayor Brown and Mayor Clary here from Hendersonville and Gallatin. They are members of our executive committee as well as Mayor Mitchell. This is a budget that we have already submitted to them at previous executive committee meetings, and they have approved it. Gallatin has also already passed and approved their budget, which included their 23% of our budget.
For just a note, the county pays 32% of this. It is an interlocal agreement with several of the cities, including Gallatin, Hendersonville, and most of the rest of them. They do have this, and they've also made a request on the ARPA funding too.
So we have previously had the 12%. The cities have been covering that portion for the hazard pay on their own, and we've been covering it with our vacancies. It has not been included in our budget for the last 2 years. We did include that 12% of those individuals that had the hazard pay. Their percentage is permanent in this budget because we've been covering it with vacancies. We wanted to make sure that it was in the budget, so if we fill our positions and get fully staffed, that it's completely accounted for.
What's the overall increase?
The overall increase, when I was looking at it, I think it's showing 485,000 or 480-something thousand. But when I looked at the numbers this past week, I did notice that there was approximately $100,000 that was not previously accounted for in the numbers that we were given when we first did the budget. I think that was covered by ARPA funds last year.
No. ARPA was the year before. The year we're in right now? Or ARPA?
Yes, or in the previous year, compared to the previous year, yes. So the numbers that we compared to from 21-22 to this past year, it was about 100,000. So it's roughly 300,000.
I mean, what we were claiming ARPA.
Correct, yes. So it's really closer to 385 difference.
I'm saying 22-23 doesn't have the ARPA in it.
Okay.
So that comparison is actually
Okay.
first dollars.
David, what page in the budget are we on here?
22 is last year.
Okay.
Mr. Long, what page in the budget are
I'm
we
sorry,
on?
we are on page 62.
62.
And then if you look at your ARPA schedule, they have a request
Yep.
on there too.
So all of our increases were predominantly from those increases in making those hazard pay permanent, as well as a 2% cost of living increase that was approved by the executive committee. The only other increases that we had throughout our budget predominantly came from memberships, because we are seeking CALIA accreditation so that we can set the standard for Sumner County and the Communications Division. That comes in our dues memberships, evaluations, and testing. And then we had some increases in printing and, travel. That was for the CALIA conference for attendance, and then custodial supplies just because of increase of supplies. And then the instructional supplies and materials also goes with a lot of our in-house training we're currently doing, as well as some additional information for CALIA.
3.
Yeah, we can ask you that. Probably can ask you that. You may want to talk about the request on ARPA also. You have one there that's called ECC Alert System.
Yes. So the information that we have requested for the ARPA funds, it is a system, it's called Locution. What it does is, as we take that call and information and put it into the CAD system, it immediately puts that out to our radios without having to go through the dispatcher, so that it's given consistent information every time. It also reduces the amount of time that it takes for that call to get dispatched. Also, that call can be dispatched simultaneously for fire and EMS at the same time, so there's no stacking of calls. If Gallatin and Hendersonville Fire are both receiving a call at the same time, they don't have to wait one or the other for the dispatcher to become available, because it's automated. It's a system that's already used by Metro agencies in Williamson County, Shelby County. It's very popular in fire and EMS.
Is excuse me, are there any ongoing maintenance or particular licensing fees that would be associated with that?
Yes, sir. It's roughly $30,000, and
So
we've already got
$30,000
that
a year?
cleared. Yes, and we've already got that cleared with the executive committee. They have already agreed to take on that cost.
So would 33% of that be borne by
32. Yep.
30? So 10,000 a year. So for us,
So it's already accounted for in our budget. We can make it within the budget that's presented here now.
Got it. I'm just trying to get the total cost.
Yes.
I mean, it sounds like a great system. I'm just trying to understand the total cost of it. So it's 300 for the county. It would be 310,000 or however much, 316,000 for the, through ARPA.
See, that's what I don't know, because right now the county, the interlocal only covers 32%, so we're covering the ARPA. Is this 32%, is that the whole thing?
That's the full amount.
So we would cover, with your requesting for ARPA through the county to cover the full upfront cost, and then it would be 10%, $10,000 roughly recurring after that.
Yes, sir.
It brings up the same question, because you just want to cover the 32% through ARPA and ask the other entities if they want to.
Yeah, I would. That's we can discuss that.
And we've already discussed that with the executive committee. The cities aren't willing to take on the other portion. However, we would seek grants to cover the other portion if ARPA funds are not
Okay.
covered.
And you think you can get those grants?
Yes, we've actually spoke with these vendor. They're supposed to be getting us information on grants that are available, as well as the actual documentation that's been provided by other agencies who have been able to get the system.
Go ahead, Ms. Mansfield.
Do you think the grants would cover the
I was
entire
gonna
cost?
say the same thing.
It's something that we can look at, yes, sir.
Okay.
Because we would actually look at the actual fire departments and EMS as well to see what other equipment they may want to include in that pool.
How quickly could you get that information back on like what they could cost or what they could cover?
It would take me a little while because I'd have to get and find the actual grants and see if they're currently available or when the deadlines are.
Okay.
Do you think there would be 100% grants or matching grants, like 80, 20?
Again, I haven't seen
Don't
the
know.
grants, so I
Okay.
have to
Okay.
check and make sure.
Because I mean, look, it sounds like a great system, and I know we're going to end up deliberating on this, but to understand like fully what our options are there, I think would be very helpful.
Yeah.
To look at the grants, are we talking a week, a month?
It could take us a month or two to find out
Okay.
exactly. Yes.
All right.
Any other questions?
Any other question for ECC? Thank y'all. Thank y'all,
Thank you.
ladies. All righty, moving down to EMA.
We're on page 60 for the regular budget and page 98 for the capital request.
There's Ken. Go ahead, Mr. Whiting.
Are you want us to go over each line? How much, what format is it going?
I mean, I think the most efficient way to do it is probably look at the differences of anything you're kind of going to.
Okay, so, salaries, and I know you're gonna make a determination on COLA, and we weren't sure about the hazard pay, and I know there's been some discussion about that. The salaries are okay with obviously whatever the, COLA, whatever the body decides. So in salary lines, unless you've got something to discuss on that, we're okay with that.
Did you apply the 6% here? Or
It
was
has
it?
the 6% plus the 50% of ARPA. If you look at his salary
Yeah.
sheets, there's like a column for cost of living, a column for ARPA, and then a column for
So
everything else.
you built that out the way we discussed.
Yes.
We're rolling off 50% of the ARPA, which had been currently moving that to local.
Right.
And then on top of that, you built up the 6 to start.
Right, and this
That's what I thought.
document is flexible enough where you
Yeah.
can have varying cost of living by department relatively.
Got it. So I think the other big note here is the radio systems, so that you pulled those. So previously, you had been paying for all of these all up front and then billing the other.
We've got to pay, so, December, and that's the way the warranty fell out, so December, that comes due, and we pay that out in December. We pay the whole out, the entire amount out, and then I invoice the individual cities, and in the past, they put,
Which I think is the right thing to do, by the way. I mean, I think that's.
yeah, and they put
He was always doing it.
Yeah.
In
No,
the
that's right.
past, they had put sheriff, EMS, and EMA in my budget, basically, and they didn't have to request that, so that's gonna be addition to theirs
EMS versus
this year, okay, and sheriff, and I've given all that to Eric. So when we look at percentages, the county agencies are about 26% of the total. And then we've got it broken down, by percentage on the document that went out to,
Yep.
if you look at the document that went out to this committee, on the far right-hand side, it shows you the percentages of each agency in the county. So to understand this, I should have said this from the beginning, every public safety agency in the county is on this system, as well as Sumner County Schools and Sumner County Highway Department.
The bill's on page 3, the actual.
Yeah. So every 3 years, the software cost reduces a little. So we toggle from the current 290,000 figure to 346. So on a 3-year cycle, the software, and I don't understand the software, some of y'all may, that price fluctuates a little bit in what has to be done to the system. But yeah, that's, my big question was, I sent budgetary figures out to all of the agencies in the county, Hendersonville Police and Fire, Gallatin Police and Fire, so on and so forth. But I wasn't sure what to do on volunteer fire. Volunteer fire is 11% of the total, and in the past, the commission's taken from that 138,000 and paid that, and I didn't want to hang volunteer fire out, not knowing what you're going to do in regards to that funding. If they needed to be looking for that funding within their the donations and such that they get, or if it was still going to come out of this, that's one piece that
Right now,
we
it's
really,
still budgeted that way.
we really have.
138.
The West got the 138 minus the
Minus.
30. Go back.
Comes in like 90 something this
Go
late.
back to that.
Yeah.
Go back to that.
Yeah.
And I'll show
Yeah, it's right
you. We found out the sheriff, the EMS is already in there, so this is the way I'm looking at it right now. These are gonna be reimbursed by something out of the general fund. All this down in here will need to be volunteer fire department, if we're gonna pay it, EMS, which they've done it, the sheriff and ECC, and then we'll have EMAs right here, plus these other entities that all need to be in his budget, because they're gonna get paid. So when he pays it, it'll be coded to this and these departments, and then that money be reimbursed, so it'll be needed. You will need to adjust your budget, because right now it doesn't have all this stuff in it, but we'll move it out. And I understand what he's saying, basically he's wondering what's gonna happen with the volunteer fire department.
No, I get it, but, I mean, what I think the answer is that it's built into their.
It's built in for you guys to look at when you get there,
Right.
Nick, tomorrow, because I've actually showed.
So we would know if we move that up or down, that that's gonna be, you know, that will include.
So basically what happened if you guys decided, hey, you didn't want to do this 138 and 33 has to be covered, we would send emails to the volunteer fire department saying, hey, next year you need to cover
Cover
this on
this.
the sheet.
Yeah.
Your radios if you're going to continue to get the services, kind of like
Yeah.
anybody else.
And that total is gonna fluctuate based on number of end users. So a user is a mobile or a portable radio. Currently, there's 2,700 and some odd radios in the county.
So I do have a question, this is like an operational, like, and I'll keep breaking my own rule here, but we got the time. So we got software and we got maintenance, and that's.
Both,
You got both,
preventative
right?
maintenance, and then, so every morning, the technicians look at the system, and when we've got SCADA components all around it that email information to us, like when a generator starts, when a generator fails, door open, temperature in the building, things like that. But they look at the actual operational piece of the system, and the preventative maintenance also includes
Are
support.
these contractors?
I'm sorry?
Who, what is, like, are those contractors or parts, what is included in that?
I can give you the document that shows everything they do. A prime example of what they do is they monitor the system daily, and if there's a problem, they
By they,
address
who-
the problem,
by they-
contact.
So, yeah, that's what I'm getting at here, we're paying their FTEs, which is, I mean, I get it, I mean, I used to be a government contractor, I know the deal. Like,
It
they,
doesn't cover damage to those towers, does it, Ken? So we're not, it doesn't cover our insurance or damage to the
we're paying their
towers.
No,
FTEs.
it
That's
doesn't
what
cover
this is.
insurance.
So it doesn't cover our insurance or our deductible or damage to the
That's what it
towers.
is. It's, I mean, I get it. I mean, there's not, look, it is what it is. They kind of got us. But like, just to be super clear, this is a,
You know, and I've asked around, and I actually asked Mike yesterday, about updates on CAD and components on IT components. And apparently a lot of money goes towards preventative maintenance and upgrades and updates and things like that on operating systems. In the past, we operated on analog repeaters, and now we're on basically a
No, I mean, I get it.
computer-operated digital system.
It's just,
Yeah,
I get it, you know,
understand
I'm looking at somebody
So-
else's business model and
So
ours.
Our increases are
Chris-
because we're paying full-time employees of the contractors.
Yeah, that's
When I talked to Ken
That's a software
earlier,
increase, that's exactly.
the cost we're charging on per radio is actually cheaper than if they did Verizon or one.
I mean, look, it probably
It's
actually
cheaper.
does make sense. I mean,
It's
I
cheaper.
get it. I'm not hating on it. I just, you know, I get it.
But I'm not, the only thing is, two things I want to make sure. One, when I asked Ken, he said he has looked at it and it's cheaper than like Verizon or one of those.
Because if we were to bring this up, let's say we're gonna do a lot of that in-house, we end up having to pay an FTE to do it like at some point,
Well,
right?
if we decided to do it the other way, we could have not done the towers and maybe wrote off of Verizon. We wouldn't have got a good coverage. It would actually be more expensive.
Yeah, I get it.
Because Verizon don't cover it.
So capacity and coverage are the two main issues on
Yeah,
the design of this radio system.
I get it.
But the thing the only issue that we do have after that is there's damage to a tower like lightning. We're still grounded pretty well now, or our insurance. We're not recovering those costs, that's the only thing.
So is that, we're self-insured on that?
We're self-insured, but we have reinsurance too, so we pay a third party to reinsure those. Plus,
So-
there's a deductible of $25,000 per
It
occurrence.
was because we had to upgrade some grounding on a couple of towers.
It made it stop,
But it's
yeah.
not, it's $250 now. Now it's back to $250, it's not
Oh, so they brought it down?
$25. So I had to pull a 10-year claim on our insurance, and we paid out just shy, they paid out just shy of $300,000, most of that on lightning strikes.
Yeah. Got it.
And then lightning strikes are gonna happen, they'll either come in on the utility side or come in on the tower. And there's a lot of things we can put in place. We're actually working with TVA now on the sites that are NES and TVA. So NES is looking at our sites that are down in the Hendersonville-Gillisville area. And they are looking at some different components to try to better protect us on the utility side, because we're a little vulnerable there, and we really don't have anything to say about that. We've upgraded the grounding to the best grounding standard there when we put the system in. One thing I want to tell you that on the user fees, just for audit purposes, I send an invoice to finance to show what those costs are, so that's tracked, documented as well.
Well, we're probably gonna actually expense it across. Probably what we'll do next year, Ken, the way set it up, they'll charge all the rest of these, they're outside the general fund of your budget. EMS, ECC, and all of them, talk to them and code it directly with their department, including that, fire department. That way the expenses will show up in their budget kind of tracking.
Which is what we,
But you'll just have to have them to sign
Yeah,
off
that's a
to
good
agree
idea.
your requisition to pay it off.
That's a good idea.
And then it'll divide out and everything perfectly. But one thing Ken was talking about before he did the grounding a couple of years back, they used to have those claims all the time for lightning.
Lot,
They did, that's
yeah.
why they spent all the money for the additional grounding, because one time there, I think we had twice a year, did we?
Oh, we were getting.
It was Music Mountain,
We
it
had
kept getting struck.
problems, yeah.
Was it Music Mountain, what the tower
Yep,
was?
$280-something thousand, yeah.
And it kept getting struck by lightning.
No, the 51,000 that we did was this year. We had 2 strikes this year, but they came in on the utility side.
maybe we should have got the message, it shouldn't have been there.
They just knocked out that tower, what we gonna do?
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that elaboration there. Any other discussion, any other big
No,
highlights?
everything else is pretty much, everything else is a yearly fee divided by 12. Outside of that, it's pretty straightforward, and we don't have a lot of funds that we don't expend at the end of the year.
Any other questions? Mr. Widener? Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Hey, I know we got a long day.
Thank you.
I was gonna bring you some candy, but I stopped by Howard, our special ops team's over there.
Yeah, I took
Stopped by there.
vacation time for
I was
today.
gonna bring
This is
some
my
candy, but
vacation.
I said, I don't want to think about it. So, anyway, y'all do that.
Me too, back 2 days of vacation.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're already county clerk.
Yeah.
We're ahead of schedule. Nice.
And she didn't ask for anything.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
She is on page number 42 on your hard budget.
Thank you.
What I just passed out is, shows our fees, actually, what our budget collected. The yellow shows that we turned in over $1 million above our budget. So the only thing I'm asking for is COLA.
That's one of those drop the mic moments right there.
She's just asking for whatever the cost of living is on our budget.
Got it.
And a couple things about the county clerk's office, and they may come back later, that's what they actually have a couple of fees that are legally restricted. They receive one for computer automation, but they have several $100,000, so if they need a server, they will ask for it from it, but it can't be used for anything else. Now, I think you got a new titling fee that can be used for titling, and it's restricted, I think about $3, but it can only be used for titling.
I do have one question. So, and this is relevant, I think, to the county clerk, but it's relevant in other parts too, Mr. Long. So, they didn't receive, your office didn't receive any funding through ARPA for any salary or hazard pay that we were calling at the time, and now we're calling something else,
The
right?
only 4 officers received money, and they actually received it on everybody, including administrative.
Yeah, that's key
And that was kind
here.
of where a lot of people would do it.
For who, which one, which
It
office?
was ECC, but they added it back in locally, we haven't looked at that, EMA, sheriff, and EMS.
So the point here is we did have, which I do think is something, and I don't want to get into this now, but that we will need to address, that if we're going to be acknowledging that this was that those funds for ARPA are going to be baked in going forward, and that they were done only for certain personnel, even though some of those personnel were not necessarily in the field, and this isn't knocking anybody. You know, you had administrative personnel receiving, you know, if you roll it all in, you know, 8, 12, 15% increases year over year, and then you have other administrative personnel, like, I do think we're gonna need to address that, and I'll just leave it at that, and we'll get to it later. But does that make sense to this body here? And you're just the first one up there who happened to.
So, I do have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
As far as like, you know, actual spend versus total fees collected, so what is that increase, I guess, in the fees collected, is just the volume of
Last year
people
was a remarkable year. Once emissions went away, they came out of the woodwork.
to pay for their tag? What would you say was?
So reduce.
They were avoiding paying the.
So you reduce regulation and you get more money.
Well,
That's great. What a
here's the discussion we had quite a while back. This is because the county doesn't have a lot of extra money. We knew the emissions was gonna go away, it's about 195,000. So I was looking at the budget, I'm like, if that goes away, I need to pull that out of the budget. I can't
We
worry
more
about
than
it.
made it up.
Well, this year, it went away, so we're like, we'll be short. Well, this is what happened to,
That's great.
people weren't
So
paying. It's what
is that
happened.
really just from tags, that much of an increase from tag fees?
Well, and sales tax, vehicles and boats have increased, so we get 5% back. That's turned over.
I'm gonna expect that to decrease this year, so.
That's not decreased.
We've
I'm talking
kind
about
of-
this coming year.
I've labeled your projections, but I
Yeah.
have to do.
Yeah,
I think
that's
what's
not
happened,
gonna
we did a
happen, yeah.
hump,
You're not gonna have that.
and then a normal
money
growth
happen.
because you picked up this big gob of non-payers.
That's not happening.
But as you can see, the trend has been up.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's not-
But this year's just an extraordinary.
But
jump.
look, I mean,
So I didn't count for that in your trend growth next
so I love stuff like this, and I gotta say,
Let's look at her.
relatively, keeping it relatively flat here and your revenues going up, that's what you want.
We can kind of show them what we think next year will be.
You got
I was fairly
regulation.
conservative because it's under it says official. The government.
You're making money.
Next year, what I projected for her fees was pretty conservative at 3.1. It looks huge, but right now we're thinking she's gonna bring over 3 million this year. So I kind of did this big hump she's got, and I don't consider
You're
her
gonna
the normal
level it
growth
off.
after that. Actually, it's slightly.
That's smart.
That's what I think is gonna happen.
That's good.
I think that's probably low, but I don't wanna gamble you guys' financial well-being on that. So if I'm guessing, that number's probably 5% low. She'll probably tell you the same thing, but she's probably like me, adverse to gambling, so I think that's a good number. I'm not a big risk taker, so you guys could probably easily argue that number up. I'm just not a risk taker.
Any other discussions? Any other questions for Ms. Templeton? Thank you, ma'am. All righty. Moving on to the trustee.
I'll help you.
Thank you. We are ahead of schedule.
Okay.
We'll do the Bob's split first.
Adjourn.
Hey, Mr. Show, the school concentrations call, they can't make it Saturday, or one person's apartment.
You just do theirs.
They're holding that for basically nothing. And
Yeah, she sent an email, her daughter ran late.
Miss Ripley, that's Miss Ripley.
Yeah.
That was a good idea. Split that together.
Breaking news. Oh, can you go to that sheet for Mr.
Well, I mean, you know who else could do that is, tourism. Tourism was.
Possibly, this is just general fund, total. Other, which is all these other.
Now, that's a little bit murkier.
Benefits, total.
That's a little
A
murkier.
little bit, yeah. Now, this
But
one's
that one's
much more
straightforward.
The ARPA last year, if we went some more, but that was all funded federal, so it wasn't good. Well, that's really what this number. Let's get that $2 million really what it's all about. Additional needs, bunch of new positions.
Something that says 6%.
Oh, yeah, we got. We did my department change it, and then it's right over in one of these places. And then if you go down here. Well, you can do different. I'm sorry. That's the only. You've got a few we can.
So that's gonna.
All right. We didn't officially take a break here, so let's go ahead and keep rolling.
You guys are fast.
We try to be, because I'm just taking it in now, because almost every meeting we go long, so.
She is on.
Well, we need to
page-
write this down.
She's page 41 and 97 on your budget handout, and then 81 is where her
Thank you,
salary
Judge
stuff,
Howard.
we'll pull it up here. So page 41 is for her budget, and then on 97, she's asked for a capital item. It's a small capital item, so you may want to go over it first. And I can,
Either way.
Don't listen to David, go by your agenda on this.
no,
You get the
but I mean,
numbers
it's so
all.
small, you get to her budget.
I'm just saying,
What did you
on,
ask for to remodel?
on the agenda, he's getting the numbers wrong. That's what it
We don't, we're not.
She's on 81.
So we don't know how much it's gonna
is. He did, but
cost.
I'm just saying he's wrong on those numbers. Listen to that. No, it's not right. I mean, just read
Hey,
and then listen
Tyler was
to
working on that now, David.
She's
All right.
asked for 30, was it 30, is that the correct amount?
I think it's thirty.
She's asked for 30,000 to remodel her office, because I think it's the tax relief is what's the issue
Yes,
right now.
our office is very small, in case you haven't seen it, and we have 2 stations set up front on either side of the door, and then one in another corner to handle our tax relief and tax freeze applications. And it's growing, and when we have this next reappraisal, it's gonna grow way bigger. And so we need more room, because when our elderly come in for this program, they cannot hear well. So they're yelling to the ladies that are taking their applications. The ladies have to yell back for them to hear. The people at the counter paying their regular property taxes can't hear because of the yelling going by the door. Then, the ladies helping the front counter have to yell to the people that are the regular taxpayers, and it just becomes chaos. It's just crazy. So we need to scoot our counter back to create more distance and to serve our customers better, because it's too small in there. When we had heard that the election office was moving, we had hoped to take just the front portion of that office and move the tax relief department over there, but I don't know if that's gonna happen, so since we're not sure on that, we're gonna have to remodel our office.
Okay.
We have the growth of this county is crazy, and we have more and more every year. And the office isn't any bigger, and we need more help. We had a lot of mails, if you see the picture there, that's postmarked, that is brought in March, that we can't get to, there's so much of it. It's ridiculous. We've processed, I think it was 11 million in postmarked mail in March. If we had more part-time seasonal help to get that processed, we could get that money in the bank quicker and earn interest on it. We lost a lot of interest by not being able to get it in the bank quick enough. So we're hoping that you will kindly give us a little more money for some extra part-time help. You don't have to pay benefits, it's just seasonal. So we get those payments processed, not to mention the people calling 3 days after they mail the check, wanting to know why the check came.
Is that the 16,000?
That's right there. The part-time, right there.
Oh, okay, got it.
And then she's asking for 843 on a, I think it's a vacant
Well,
position.
wait, I'm looking at different numbers. Are these numbers the same?
Which one are we looking at?
Because I'm looking at, page 41, county trustee, part-time personnel, I see it from 43 to 60,000, so a difference of 16,378.
Let me look at page 41. So you're looking at the total, not the change. So this sheet here shows your change.
Well, I'm looking at the changes. The change says 16,378.
From last year, is there any major changes?
I mean, it's not hugely material. I'm just trying to.
Oh, there's a COLA line beside it too. Pull those two across, Ben, and give me this total.
I bet that adds up. I bet that adds up.
Those 16,378.
Yep, there you
Yeah,
go.
you got up to
That's
three
right.
lines, you got.
I got it.
COLA, additional request, and ARPA.
I got it.
Get the
I got it,
rest
got it.
for you, Jim. And then the 8,000, just to bring that to.
So how many personnel was that?
I'm sorry.
How many personnel would that be for that 16,000
For the part-time?
for the part-time?
We would like, right now we have 3 part-time. We would like to have 5.
So there's 2 personnel, part-time.
Say something about part-time. Part-time, you just really look at gross dollars because this is what you're looking at.
Right.
Part-time, you're just covering Social Security, Medicare. Now, full-time, you're gonna worry about your number of physicians because you've gotta cover health insurance.
No, I understand. I'm tracking.
Yeah, that's where we really start worrying about the counts.
Right. And of course, we want a cost of living raise for our full-time
Is your-
employees as
Now,
well.
what's that?
Is your office space big enough for additional part-time?
If we can move the counter back and have it set up where we have like a big horseshoe where we could set up, we could get more stations set up. to handle
But if that doesn't happen, then you don't really even have the space for additional employees.
We would have to,
We could accommodate 4 really easily, because we're hoping to have 2 that do nothing but process mail starting in December.
and they can sit in the back and not
And
be
they
on the
don't
front
have to have
counter.
a normal station.
Right.
I got
Yes.
two questions. One for David. David, is there any way to calculate the money we lost on interest because of the mail that they couldn't
Well, the
process?
problem, that's what I was talking to Steve earlier, there's a couple of things, we have to assume how quickly they're gonna do it at the bank, and you're gonna have to assume the rate. Right now, the rates are really good.
Right.
Because if you look at your
Yeah.
debt service, there's tons of interest, but what we were earning at one time, like, on some of the money, 1/10 of 1%. And the reason is why we earn less is, one, we're not allowed to invest it for safety. Number 2, liquidity. And number 3, anything we do have in the bank has to be collateralized, so it costs us a lot of interest. But yeah, right now, it would have cost us some this year, in normal years, not much at all.
Okay. And
Yeah, 1/10 of 1%.
But probably more than 16,000 bucks.
But it's the same thing, the issue is lines with employees, and there's lines for your customers and stuff like that.
well, the other thing I was thinking with all the screaming and chaos that's going
Yes,
on,
and it is, you should come here.
would it make sense to have any kind of booths instead of moving the counter back? If you had booths that people could step in so that they could have kind of an isolated conversation?
There's not enough, we cannot allow people to come behind our counter for security purposes with the money we handle. So the only place to set up the booths would be behind the counter without moving the counter back. that makes sense.
Well, I was just
Are you
thinking at the
talking-
counter.
You're talking about a divider between
Yeah.
the people that are covered.
Yeah.
What I think sound is localized.
What I recommend on any of this capital, before you do final appropriations, we actually, is what we still have left June, or do we have to wait all of that? In June, send all that to Jen Office to make sure you guys agree before you do the appropriations. That way you can kind of vet through it, what she's wanting to do.
Yeah.
Have it in the budget preliminary, and if you don't, basically have them in the appropriations, if you guys can't get it dealt out, they come in the budget and move those into ending reserve.
Go ahead.
Where's this construction cost built in? Where is this in the budget?
It's showing under your capital projects, the one she just put on page
91,
no, it's 97.
97.
Page 97, it's the one there at the top one.
We also have to make sure this is wheelchair accessible because a lot of.
Oh, I see it.
are
I see it. Trustees'
wheelchair
problem. Yeah, I
walkers
see it.
and have
There it is.
limited mobility.
And we have to be bringing all of those ADA compliance.
30,000.
Yeah. I mean,
On page 97 for $30,000.
I mean, we can, yeah, there's a
It's
bunch
right
of things
above
we could use
our
ARPA. We can talk
150.
about that, the different ways we can.
Yeah, I didn't wanna get ahead of myself.
Yeah, let's, I mean, I would just, and I've been breaking my own rule here, but as opposed to getting down into specifics of how to do this, let's just acknowledge the ask and figure out, there were several ways to do or not do it. We can talk through it.
No problem.
Kind of my thought, anything you want going through Gen Ops, then pull the appropriation, have that much in any reserve in your capital, and then make a note what those are for.
Yeah, that'll put
And then
money
after
into
Gen
it.
Ops approves them during the year, go back and appropriate and just have the
Yeah.
reserve for them. That way you follow your pattern, because what you end up with, if you approve an appropriation, we're following policies and appropriation, you're kind of getting the cart before the horse, and it makes it very hard for me to refuse the elected to go ahead and move forward on projects. It kind of gets in shaky grounds, and most of them will work with me, but still, it's better to go and send them back to Gen Ops for the appropriation.
So bottom line here, big changes, 2 part-time employees, $16,000 plus a little bit, and $30,000 for capital project to move
And then
to.
each year, we have to have an increase in postage and printing because of the
Okay.
growth and the
Yeah,
additional parcels that we have to build. So,
track it.
but that's just the way it is.
Any other questions?
In your printing.
Yeah, that's what I said, postage and printing.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you. Okay, EC, Election Commission.
It's 10:30, so
We're well ahead of time,
25 minutes early.
so I guess,
You want to say building and codes can come out early?
Yeah.
well, let's do a 10-minute break, see if we can, so I'll entertain that motion.
You gonna say
So move.
Okay.
You suspended the rules.
I suspended the rules anyway, let's just take a break.